statements, and I'm, by the way, going to rotate things around so that we don't, not only the same person doesn't have to always go first, but so that also so you're not always following the same person. So I'll mix it up a little bit. All right. So, but to start it off, we'll just go across the table, starting with Patty.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here with all of you. And for the people that might know Patty Lopez, my name is Patty Lopez. I'm former assembly member for the District 39. I served in the office for 2004 to 2016. And I live in the district for the past 38 years. I've been volunteering in my community for the past 25 years. So I'm one of the people that I don't give up. I see the need in my community, and that's why I decided again to run for this position, because politics can be interesting, and when people get elected, they forget about their obligation for the district. We've been lacking of resources in our community, especially in education, housing, jobs, and immigration. And not many candidates had the courage to come this far. We not the power that people have, you know. I'm not connected with any political machine in my district. I'm mom and grandma and proud citizen that take the lead to make sure that our issues are on the table in Sacramento. I'm not one of the people that can push around, you know, and I see the need, like special needs in our community. Seniors are not in Sacramento. And that's what I'm passionate to serve my community. I'm an immigrant, and that's why I have a strong accent. But I feel proud and ashamed because I can communicate with everybody. And I have experts and my team who support me. So people misunderestimate Patty. Patty gonna stay here, and we're gonna fight again until the end. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Liz?
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this forum. My name is Luz Rivas. I grew up here in the San Fernando Valley in Pacoima and Arleta. My family came from Mexico in the 1950s and the 1960s, so we have very deep roots in this area. We know lots of families. I attended local public schools, graduated from San Fernando High School, and after that had this amazing opportunity with a full scholarship to attend MIT, where I studied electrical engineering. And you know, my tuition was more than my family income. And so I'm very proud to have earned that scholarship and to have succeeded as an engineer. So after working for Motorola for a few years, I became passionate about teaching kids about science and engineering, because I would go to career days and they had no idea what I did and how I got there, especially kids from my community that looked like me and had the same story, an immigrant story. And so I decided to do something about it. And so I did a master's first at Harvard, and then I came home and I started a nonprofit with $200 and volunteers. Parents joined me, kids joined. And the focus of this nonprofit, which is DIY Girls, or Do It Yourself, is to get young girls interested in science and engineering careers. And we've done that. It's a very successful Valley nonprofit. We've served over 2,500 girls in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, and it continues to grow. So I'm very proud of that success. You know, as a nonprofit founder, I also started a small social enterprise, like a small company. So I've had, and prior to this, I was appointed by Mayor Garcetti to serve on the Public Works Commission. So my experience is in private industry, education and nonprofits, and in local government, and that's what I want to bring to Sacramento, that experience, to serve the Valley. Thank you.
Antonio?
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. If my voice is a little weird, it's because I have a 2-year-old that can talk back. And I have a lot of, hold on, no. But good morning. So also grew up in the Valley, excited to be here. Thank you for your time. There's a lot happening. So I love the Valley. My parents came to this country when I was 5. And I remember my first day walking out of our apartment in North Hollywood and not speaking a word of English. Although I was born in this country, my parents moved back and forth, kind of like the way some migrants do. So scary time My mom is one of 15. My dad is one of 12. Almost everyone is still in Mexico. I have over 100 cousins. And I wish they all lived in the district. But to be serious here, so I went to see Sun. I'm an anthropology major. Through really my youth, it was you have to go to college, you have to go to school, right? And I did. I graduated with a degree in anthropology, and I had no idea what I was going to do. Naturally, I was going to apply to the Peace Corps. So I grabbed a Peace Corps application. Halfway through the application, I had a thought. I just thought, I don't need to travel 3,000 miles to help people. I can just help people in the communities I grew up in. So since then, I've been working in the Northeast Valley as a field rep for an assembly member, as an area director for the mayor. And I was the guy that was essentially making sure that the city departments were doing their job, that our streets were being cleaned, that our trees were being trimmed, and you were getting the services that you need. During the past 5 years, I've been connecting people with good jobs. That's been my focus. There's a construction boom in Los Angeles, and I think that we need to fill those positions. College isn't the only path to success. We all know that here. I want to see our apprenticeship programs get the attention they deserve. I have the stop sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for those introductions. Let's start with a question you probably get out of a lot of forums, and that is, what do you think is the most pressing issue that is facing the 39th Assembly District, and how would you, as a member of the State Assembly, address it? And we'll go on this question, Luz, Antonio, and then Patty.
I think the most, and it's not just what I think, it's what I've heard already from voters, you know, through my meet and greets and my conversations in the Valley, homelessness. And a lot of times we think of homelessness as just Skid Row or downtown Los Angeles. But our families face that too. They face this issue too. We have homeless encampments under freeways, in the washes, like in the Pacoima Wash, Tahunga, and you know, that's I think the most pressing issue for us. And a lot of that, the reasons some of these individuals are homeless are due to severe mental health issues. And so those are issues that are like intertwined, right? And focused on, you know, in the state legislature, I think we need to focus on not only building housing, but providing the social services that are critical for these individuals to remain housed.
Great, thank you. Housing, and tied to homelessness, but directly housing. Look, my wife and I are raising our 2-year-old daughter in North Hollywood. We both make good money. And the truth is, I don't know when we're going to have enough money to put down on a house. My parents are not going to give me $100,000, $150,000 to have that 20% down payment. So housing is a crisis. It's an absolute crisis. I also think that the cost of housing is tied to our homelessness. I don't think that every homeless person is out there because they're not on their meds. I think that's a misconception. I think that the cost of housing is directly tied. So during the past 5 years, I have been advocating for the construction of more housing. It's not easy. I hear it from from contractors. I hear it from the developers. The process takes too long. It's too costly. We have to do something so we can increase the supply of housing in the San Fernando Valley. I also want to see multiple types of housing. So not just market rate, but also low income, also for teachers. I was walking this past weekend and I ran it, knock on the door, 40-something-year-old, I won't give you names, but she lives there with her family and her parents, teacher, LAUSD, and cannot afford to purchase her own home. That's a shame. That's a shame because as a business, you need a workforce. You need a talented, educated workforce, and ideally they should live here in the Valley. If we cut our traffic, gives me a little more time with my family, gives you a little more time with your family, reduces improves our air quality, and I think it helps build our community. So housing, major issue, but tied in many different ways to homelessness as well.
Well, I believe, yes, housing, but my part will be rent control. Rent control. Right now, it's into the sky. And even the professionals that we have right now, like the teachers, they can afford it. I'm homeowner. I buy my house like 30 years ago, and it's a bit different. And of course, like Antonio said, now I have my daughter, and they make a good money, but it's so hard for them to make it happen. We support them, but how many parents really can support the kids to provide to get a house? My only thing is, I feel the government, we're wasting a lot of money and put the money in the wrong places. We're passing so many measures, and the money, it gets so tight in the sky when the need is in our community. And I was there in San Matahanga doing so many cleanups, and we had to collaborate with all the levels of the government, the local, the county, the state, and the federal. Right now, everybody's pointing different directions. We need to have accountability in the government. We cannot waste more money or raise more taxes. The working family is so hard for them to pay more taxes, pay more rent. And we have big issues in our Hollywood, that beautification. They move those families away. So why we not expecting so many people homeless if we don't provide opportunities? Section 8 is not at the table. The list is so hard. The crime tied with housing. So we have to make sure to not waste money, and if you wait past any measure, make sure there is accountability. Now we have another bill. When I was in Sacramento, we start the granny houses.
Okay, well, all of you, whether it's homelessness or housing, have all kind of focused on housing. And I actually want to spend a little more time on that, because I think many in this room would agree that housing is one of the biggest issues facing LA generally and California generally. So some want to fix the housing crisis by, many do, by basically building more housing. Obviously, Ms. Lopez talked about rent control, but many people think that supply is a huge problem. The problem with supply is that while many want to build more housing, whether it be market rate or affordable housing, constituents are often very much against it. And so you end up with arguments about preserving neighborhoods, increasing density, gentrification issues. There's a bill up in Sacramento right now being sponsored by, I think, Senator Wiener, and he would basically force or allow developers within, I think now, a quarter mile of major transit stops to be able to override local jurisdictions. So I would like to know what you think about that bill in particular, but also if you have any further ideas about how we can help provide more affordable housing in the 39th district. So for this question, I think we'll start with Antonio and then come back to Patty and Luz.
Without seeing the specific language and the specific bill, I'm interested. I'm a big fan of TODs, but I also understand that we do have to protect the quality and character of various neighborhoods. That means that we do have to be selective on where we can increase density, because I think we should. It might not be as popular to tell some of our voters and our neighbors, but there are streets where we should have 3, 4, 5-story buildings. It's happening now. You see it a bit in North Hollywood. I think we have to identify those corridors. I do not want to see displacement. We have to be able to give folks the opportunity to stay or ideally come back if that's where they've been living. Because again, we'll be contributing to the homelessness population, or we'll just be shuffling people around. So yes, during the past 5 years, I have been advocating for construction projects, and I do think it's a lengthy process. It's a costly process, and we have to do something to help streamline some of those projects. With construction also come jobs. If you made me pick one subject, is housing. The other one is jobs. I've been working with local developers and contractors to get local folks on those jobs. That's important. I want to see that. Neighbors want to see that. And in fact, that's an excellent way to have the conversation with some folks that do not want to see that development. We can say, hey, your son or daughter can have a fantastic career in construction in an apprenticeship program, not an internship program, an apprenticeship program where they do have access to healthcare and a career in a ladder to the middle class.
I think, I lived on the East Coast, for school, and the best part of it was not having to have a car. And so because public transportation was accessible to all, everybody used the bus and the subway to get to work, to get to school, to go to the grocery store. It's just, that was the lifestyle. And here, we don't always build our public transportation close to housing. Or like what you mentioned, the transit-oriented communities. While I think in concept they're a great idea, I think we need to work further to make sure that our communities that currently live in those areas are not being displaced, that families are not being displaced from that area. A lot of times, like I know it's happened like near the Purple Line, luxury housing, we do see 4-story, 5-story buildings, but it's luxury housing. And so it's not affordable to people that have been in that community for years. So that's definitely one of my concerns. My family, my mom could never afford to buy a home, even 30 years ago when I was a kid. And now she lives on Social Security, and she can't afford to rent a home in the Valley. So she had to move to Lancaster, which is a lot of Valley families moved to Palmdale, Lancaster because they want a home. And I had to buy the home for her because she doesn't qualify with $1,000 a month. And so I have a mortgage and I have high rent. And my rent is more than the mortgage of the Lancaster home in my apartment in North Hollywood. And so, but in addition, when people have to move out of our area, they still work here. And so like my brother-in-law and sister also moved out to